Most people don't lose control when a disaster hits. They lose it on a completely ordinary afternoon. Gas station line around the block. Pharmacy shelf cleared. Phone at 4%. No catastrophe. Just small, avoidable failures stacking up for someone who had weeks, sometimes months, to prepare and didn't. Here's the thing almost nobody says directly. The 15 items on this list aren't dramatic survival gear. They're things you've bought 100 times without thinking about them. And that familiarity is exactly what makes them dangerous to overlook. They don't vanish because the world runs out of them. They vanish because millions of people decide they need them at the exact same moment. There's a moment, call it the invisible threshold, when enough people sense instability that collective behavior shifts. Before that moment, every item on this list is fully stocked, normally priced, available in 15 minutes. After that moment, the picture changes fast. Not gradually. Fast. This video covers 15 specific items, most under $20, all available right now. But more than a checklist, it's a mental model for understanding why these particular things disappear first, so that the next time you sense the threshold approaching, you already know what to do about it. You've probably bought most of these in the last year. The question is whether you have them right now, ready, maintained, where you can actually reach them. And one more thing before we start. The last item on this list is the one that determines whether every other item actually matters. Keep that in mind as we go. Let's go. Item 15. Fuel, the operating system. Fuel is item 15, not because it's the least important. It's item 15 because it's the frame everything else on this list sits inside. But we'll get to that. First, the pattern. When a storm gets named, or a significant supply chain headline breaks, or any event occurs that makes people feel instability, the first visible consequence, usually within hours, is gas station lines. And here's what makes that striking. The fuel hasn't disappeared. Refineries kept running. Distribution kept moving. Nothing in the actual supply chain failed. What happened is behavioral. Millions of individual people made the same rational decision at the same time. Get fuel first. Each of those decisions, made individually, is completely reasonable. Made simultaneously by millions of people, it produces a collective outcome no individual intended. The local distribution system, built for steady, predictable daily demand, cannot absorb a synchronized spike. It gridlocks. During Hurricane Ian in 2022, some areas of Florida saw gas station lines exceeding 3 hours within 12 hours of the storm's forecast being upgraded to Category 4. The fuel was there. The access wasn't. That gap between supply existing and supply being accessible is the entire problem this item addresses. The fix is structural, not reactive. Keep your tank above the halfway mark. Not full at all times, that's an unreasonable standard. Just never let it drop below half before refilling. Make the refill threshold a habit, not a decision. That one habit permanently removes you from the problem. While other people spend 3 hours in a line on day 2, you aren't there. You were never in a position where you needed to be. What would you do if every station within 5 miles had a 2-hour wait starting tomorrow morning? Item 14. A hand crank or battery radio. Your phone tells you what happened. A radio tells you what's happening right now, even when the grid is completely gone and the cell network has failed. This item almost never appears near the top of preparedness lists. That's a significant oversight, and here's why it matters. The Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Federal Communications Commission both designate AM and FM broadcast radio as the primary emergency communication channel during grid-down events. The Emergency Alert System, the official government system for broadcasting evacuation orders, shelter-in-place instructions, and real-time threat updates, runs through broadcast radio. Not through internet. Not through apps. Radio. Here's what most people don't know about their phone during a power outage. Cell towers have backup power. Most are equipped with battery reserves or diesel generators. But that backup capacity typically lasts 4 to 8 hours. After that window closes, even with a fully charged phone in your hand, you may have no signal at all. The phone is alive. The network it depends on is not. During Hurricane Maria in 2017, roughly 95% of Puerto Rico's cell network went offline and remained down for weeks. Broadcast radio was the primary, in many areas, the only information channel for millions of people navigating one of the most complex disaster situations. A hand crank radio requires no batteries and no grid. 60 seconds of manual cranking gives you 30 to 45 minutes of reception. A battery-powered model runs for hours on a set of standard AAs. A quality unit costs between $20 and $40. Information during a disruption is not a comfort. It's a practical resource. Knowing what is happening, where to go, what to avoid when a situation resolves, allows every other decision on this list to be made correctly. Without it, you're navigating blind. Item 13. Cash in small bills. Every digital payment system you currently use, your debit card, your credit card, your phone's payment app, your bank's mobile platform, shares one dependency: electrical infrastructure. When the grid goes down, your purchasing power goes with it. Not your money. Your access to your money. This distinction matters more than most people realize. During the Northeast blackout of 2003, which affected approximately 55 million people across the northeastern United States and Canada, ATMs went dark and card terminals failed within hours of the outage beginning. The only transaction medium that continued functioning was physical cash. Stores that remained open sold only to customers who had it. Think about that scenario applied to your household. A fully funded bank account and a $0 account are functionally identical when the terminal is down. The number on the screen doesn't matter if you can't reach it. A 2019 Federal Reserve payment study found that 26% of Americans carry no cash at all. That number has almost certainly grown since. We have largely optimized ourselves out of a payment method that is uniquely resilient to exactly the kind of infrastructure failure. The solution is minimal. Keep $60 to $100 in small bills, 5s and 10s specifically, not a single 50. Not in your wallet, which travels with you and may not always be accessible. In a dedicated spot that stays there. A small envelope in a drawer. A clip in a waterproof document folder. This isn't about having emergency savings. It's about having a payment method that works when every other payment method doesn't. Item 12. Copies of critical documents. Here's a question worth taking seriously. If you had to leave your home in 20 minutes, could you prove who you are? Could you access your prescriptions? Could you file an insurance claim for what you left behind? For most households, the honest answer is probably not, at least not without difficulty. This is the item that addresses what I'd call the invisible infrastructure of normal life. The documents that allow you to navigate every official system, medical, financial, legal, governmental, exist in physical and digital form, and in a disruption or evacuation scenario, not having access to them creates downstream failures that compound quickly and are genuinely difficult to resolve. After Hurricane Harvey in 2017, FEMA documented that document loss was among the top 3 barriers to aid access for displaced residents. People who had survived the storm, who had evacuated safely, who were applying for assistance, were delayed by weeks because they couldn't prove residency, identity, or ownership. The disaster was over for them physically. Administratively, it continued. Many prescription medications, particularly controlled substances, cannot be refilled without documentation. In a scenario where you've been displaced and your regular pharmacy is unreachable, not having that record, the fix costs almost nothing and takes an afternoon. A waterproof document folder, about $5, holds physical copies of your passport or state ID. A small USB drive with scanned versions of the same documents, stored in a secure cloud backup as a second layer, takes about 20 minutes to set up. This is $5 and one afternoon standing between you and weeks of administrative delay in the worst moments. That's an asymmetry worth acting on. Item 11. A headlamp. Not a flashlight. Specifically a headlamp. And the difference in utility is larger than most people expect until they've actually tried to accomplish something in complete darkness, with one hand occupied. When power fails, the immediate practical problem isn't food or water. It's darkness. And the instinctive response most people reach for, a flashlight or a candle, solves the visibility problem while creating a different one. A flashlight occupies a hand. Every task you need to accomplish in a dark home, locating supplies, preparing food, helping a child, moving carefully through an unfamiliar space, now gets done with one hand. Slower, more error-prone, more exhausting. Candles are worse. The light is stationary, dim, and unstable. In a disrupted home with tired adults, children, or elderly family members, an open flame is a compounding hazard. It doesn't just provide light, it introduces risk. A headlamp solves both problems simultaneously. The light follows wherever you look. Both hands stay completely free. Brightness is adjustable. A quality LED unit runs 8 to 20 hours on a single battery set and costs between $15 and $40. There's a practical note worth adding. Keep at least 2 in fixed, known locations, not in a general drawer where they might be anywhere. Keep the batteries current. This is the item that makes every other item on this list actually accessible and usable after dark. Without it, the darkness doesn't just affect visibility. It affects your ability to execute every other preparation you've made. Item 10. A backup power source. A power outage doesn't feel serious in the first hour. You assume it'll resolve. You check your phone, full charge, no problem. You wait. By hour 3, something has quietly shifted. Your phone is at 42%. You've been conserving it, but you've been checking news, sending messages, using the flashlight app. It's dropping faster than expected. The router is dark. You're burning mobile data, and every refresh costs battery you can't recover. By hour 8, the percentage stops feeling like a number. It starts feeling like a countdown. Modern smartphones under heavy use, continuous news checking, messaging, flashlight activation, consume 10 to 15% of battery per hour. A full charge lasts 7 to 10 hours under those conditions. That's not a disaster scenario. That's a realistic outage timeline. The goal of a backup power source isn't to recreate your normal setup. That's not the point. The goal is narrower and specific. Keep your phone charged, maintain internet access where possible, and preserve basic lighting. Communication, information, visibility, those 3 functions, maintained, are enough to stay stable through most outage scenarios. But here's where most people fail this category silently. They buy the device. They put it in a drawer. 3 months later, when they need it, the battery is at 11% and the device is effectively useless. A power source you haven't maintained is not preparation. In some ways, it's worse than having nothing because it removes the urgency to actually solve the problem. Set a monthly calendar reminder to top up your power bank. Treat it like you'd treat a smoke detector battery check. A mid-range 20,000 milliamp hour power bank, which costs $40 to $60, can charge a modern smartphone. Keep it charged. Keep it accessible. And when you use it, prioritize clearly. 5 items covered. Here's the pattern worth naming explicitly. Not one of these is dramatic. None require specialized training. None cost more than $60. Every single one represents a category of failure that appears consistently, documented, repeated, predictable, in real disruption events. The next 10 follow the same logic, but they address a different layer of need, the physical basics of daily function. Let's keep going. Item 9. A manual can opener. This one almost didn't make the list. It's on the list because of how consistently it's absent from households that genuinely believe they're prepared. Canned food is the most common thing people store for emergencies. Beans, vegetables, soup, fish, a reasonable foundation for any short-term supply situation. But every single can in that supply depends on one thing: the ability to open it. Electric can openers, the default in most modern American kitchens, stop working the moment the power does. Improvising with a knife or forcing a lid open by hand is slow, unreliable, and genuinely risky. Emergency room records from disaster events document can opening injuries specifically, because people attempt to improvise access to food they can see but can't safely reach. A manual can opener costs under $10. And yet it's one of the most consistently absent items in households with substantial canned food supplies. People build the pantry. They skip the final step. The resource exists. The access to the resource doesn't. Those are not the same thing. Keep at least one reliable manual opener in the kitchen and one in your emergency kit. They're easy to misplace and they fail mechanically over time. $10 to close a gap that left open renders an entire pantry inaccessible. The math is straightforward. Item 8. Water filtration. Here's something that rarely gets said directly. Running tap water and safe tap water are not the same thing. Most people have never had reason to think about that distinction, which is exactly how it becomes a blind spot. Municipal water treatment is reliable under normal conditions. That reliability becomes an assumption, and that assumption stops most people from thinking about what happens when the conditions aren't normal. The American Society of Civil Engineers gives U.S. water infrastructure a D+ in its most recent infrastructure report card, a grade reflecting aging pipes, treatment facilities running on decades-old equipment, and distribution systems designed for populations that have since grown significantly. When those systems face stress, flooding, power failures at pumping stations, contamination from disrupted sources, the water that continues flowing from your tap may no longer be safe to use without treatment. And here's the genuinely unsettling part. Compromised tap water usually looks completely normal, clear, no obvious smell, visually identical to what you drink every day. You cannot assess the safety of water by looking at it. You can only assess it by knowing the system that produced is still intact. In a disruption, that knowledge disappears. Boil advisories require residents to boil all water used for drinking, cooking, and even brushing teeth until the system is verified clean. If your stove is electric and the power is out, that requirement cannot be met without an independent solution. A portable gravity-fed or pump filter, $20 to $80, requires no power, no fuel, no fire. It removes bacteria, protozoa, and many chemical contaminants from tap water or other sources. This isn't wilderness gear. It's a verified backup for the resource your household cannot function without when the system you normally trust is no longer verifiable. Item 7. Medicine and basic first aid. Medical preparedness almost always gets framed around worst-case scenarios. Major injuries, hospitalizations, events that require full medical infrastructure. That framing is exactly why most households are underprepared for the situations that are actually most likely. The real risk isn't dramatic. It's a fever at 11 p.m. when the pharmacy closed 2 hours ago. A child with an ear infection on the second day of a disruption. A wound from routine activity that needs cleaning right now. Under normal conditions, these are minor inconveniences. Under disrupted conditions, stores crowded, shelves cleared, movement restricted, the same situations compound. A fever treated within a few hours is one uncomfortable evening. That same fever unmedicated extends across multiple days and affects every member of the household. A clean cut dressed immediately heals without complications. Left unaddressed, it can become infected and significantly more difficult to manage. The pattern is consistent. The difference, in most cases, is whether the right materials were within arm's reach. The core list is not complicated. Pain relievers, a fever reducer, antihistamine, antiseptic, sterile gauze, adhesive bandages, a thermometer, and a small buffer supply of any prescription medications your household depends on. That buffer supply, 7 to 14 days extra, typically requires just a brief conversation with your doctor and is routinely accommodated. Over-the-counter analgesics and fever reducers were among the first products to clear from pharmacy shelves in the early weeks of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's documented, photographed, reported across every major retail channel simultaneously. Prepare this before there's any signal of disruption. The cost is minimal. What it gives you is the ability to manage your household's health on your own schedule, not one determined by what's happening outside. We're past halfway. And the next item isn't about physical supplies. It's about something most people don't recognize as a preparedness issue at all, until they're sitting in a dark home on day 2 with a full pantry they can't use. Item 6. A portable cooking method. Having food and being able to eat are two separate things. Most people who think about food preparedness focus entirely on the first. The second is where the actual gap tends to be. Most American kitchens run on electricity. Electric range, microwave, electric oven. When the grid goes down, every one of those appliances is gone simultaneously. You might have pasta, rice, canned beans, and soup a solid supply by any standard. But without heat, most of that food is either unsafe or simply not palatable in the quantities your household needs over consecutive days. This plays out in real disruptions consistently. Winter storms, hurricanes, extended regional outages. The account from households who live through extended events isn't typically "we ran out of food," it's "we had food we couldn't prepare." A portable butane or propane camping stove with 4 to 6 fuel canisters. That's the solution. It fits on one cabinet shelf, costs $20 to $60 complete, and gives you the ability to boil water, heat food, and prepare basic meals with complete independence from the grid. There's also a psychological dimension here that is genuinely easy to underestimate. A warm, cooked meal during a disruption isn't a luxury. It's a stabilizing signal to every person in the household that basic function is still intact. Research in disaster psychology identifies routine, particularly meal routine, as a significant factor in household stability during extended events. 2 points that are not optional. First, these stoves and canisters sell out quickly when a significant outage is anticipated. If a major storm is approaching and you don't already own one, you may find empty shelves. Second, and this is serious, combustion stoves must only be used outdoors or in genuinely well-ventilated spaces. The CDC reports that carbon monoxide poisoning from indoor generator and stove use increases significantly after major storms. During the aftermath of Hurricane Irene in 2011, more than 1,000 people in a single state were treated for CO exposure, most from indoor use of combustion appliances that seemed safe because the engine was outside or the windows were cracked. Have the stove. Know how to use it safely. Both of those things matter equally. We're past the halfway mark. And here's the observation worth making before we continue. If you've been watching this list, thinking these all seem obvious, that reaction is correct. They should be obvious. Every item covered so far is something you've seen, bought, and probably owned at various points in your life. The question this list is really asking isn't whether you know about these things. It's whether you have them right now, maintained, tested, and ready to use. Those are completely different questions. The last 5 are where most people discover the gap between those two things. Item 5. A lighter or matches. The stove is set up. The fuel canister is attached. The food is ready. There is nothing to light it with. This is one of the most common single-point failures in otherwise well-prepared households. Not because people don't own lighters. Because lighters and matches belong to a category of items so permanently assumed to be present that they're never actively maintained. A lighter quietly runs out of fluid. A box of matches sits in a drawer for 2 years while the strike tips gradually degrade. The one working lighter in the kitchen gets borrowed and not returned. In a disruption, you reach for it and find nothing. There's also a technical point worth knowing. Standard butane lighters lose reliable ignition at temperatures below approximately 40 degrees Fahrenheit, around 4 degrees Celsius. In northern climates, where winter weather and power outages tend to coincide, that's a realistic temperature range, and a lighter that functioned fine in October. The solution is structural. 3 fixed locations. 3 ignition sources. 1 near the stove, 1 in your emergency kit, 1 stored separately from both. Waterproof matches as a backup option for wet conditions. Rotate them before they run dry. Check them on a regular schedule, the same way you'd check a smoke detector battery. The cost of doing this is a few dollars. The failure mode when this gap exists is immediate and complete. You have the food. You have the stove. You have the fuel. And none of it is usable. Close the gap before you need to discover it's there. Item 4. Toilet paper and hygiene essentials. If you were watching closely in early 2020, this one needs no introduction. Toilet paper became the most documented, most photographed, most discussed example of a supply chain overwhelmed not by production failure, not by a real shortage, but by a behavioral cascade. Manufacturing was running. Trucks were moving. Distribution was functioning normally. The problem was that millions of households decided, in the same compressed window, to stock up. And the retail replenishment system isn't designed to absorb that kind of synchronized spike. It's calibrated for steady, predictable daily consumption. When that pattern breaks suddenly, the restock cycle can't keep pace, and the gap between empty shelf and restocked shelf gets measured in days. Nielsen retail data from March 2020 documented U.S. toilet paper sales increasing 845% in a single week. Researchers at the University of Cambridge studying panic buying behavior confirmed that the shortage was driven by perceived scarcity, not actual scarcity, meaning people bought more because they saw others buying more, in a self-reinforcing loop that cleared shelves faster than any real supply disruption could have. This pattern is not specific to toilet paper or to pandemics. Any high-turnover, low-unit value item that people assume will always be there behaves this way under any disruption signal. Toilet paper, soap, paper towels, basic hygiene products. These items move first and fastest, not because they're the most critical supplies, but because everyone reaches for them at the same moment. The moment most people think, I should grab an extra pack, is the moment the window has already closed. At that point, you're not acting ahead of the crowd. You are the crowd. A few extra packages maintained as a rolling buffer on a normal shopping trip, before any signal of disruption. That's the entire strategy. Item 3. Salt and basic seasonings. This is the item most likely to get skipped. It's also the one that reveals something most preparedness content never addresses directly. Physical survival and psychological sustainability fail through completely different mechanisms. And in an extended disruption, it's often the second one that erodes first. Day 1, the food is adequate. You eat without much thought. Day 2, the food tastes flat. Nothing alarming. Day 3, something measurable has shifted, not in physical health, but in the willingness to eat. Appetite weakens. Meals stop feeling like meals. Caloric intake quietly drops below what the situation demands. Energy follows. Cognitive function follows. This isn't pickiness. It reflects a documented pattern in extended disruption and food monotony scenarios. Appetite regulation depends on sensory variety, flavor, aroma, the basic experience of food that tastes like something. Remove those consistently, and the appetite signal degrades. FEMA's Community Resilience Framework acknowledges meal quality and variety as genuine factors in household stability during extended events. Salt is the baseline. Without it, food doesn't just taste bland. It tastes wrong in a way that progressively undermines the willingness to eat even when the body needs the calories. Even simple staples like rice or pasta become difficult to consume consistently without it. Beyond flavor, salt has a functional use that most people don't think about. It inhibits bacterial growth and extends the usable life of food when refrigeration is unavailable. Under those conditions, salt isn't just a seasoning. It's a preservation tool. Pepper, garlic powder, and a few dried herbs add enough sensory variety to keep appetite stable across consecutive days in a way that unseasoned food simply cannot. Combined cost, under $15. Shelf life, years. Space required, half a shelf. And these are among the first items to clear off grocery store shelves in disruptions, not because anyone puts them at the top of the list, but because everyone realizes their necessity at exactly the same moment. Buy them before that moment arrives. Item 2. Batteries. AA and AAA. Your headlamp doesn't function without them. Your thermometer, your flashlight, your battery-powered lantern, every safety and communication device in this video runs on AA or AAA batteries. And batteries have a failure mode that separates them from almost everything else on this list. They give you no warning. A device can appear completely functional right up until the exact moment it stops working. You will not know the batteries are near depletion until you reach for the flashlight in the dark and nothing happens. Or the radio stays silent. Or the thermometer screen stays blank when someone in your household has a fever at 2 in the morning. Under normal conditions, you replace batteries when you think of it. Stores are open, supply is available, it's a 2-minute errand. That assumption holds until the moment the stores are closed. Local stock is already gone, or you simply cannot leave and you discover the device is dead. Here's something most people don't account for. Batteries lose charge even in storage. Standard alkaline AA batteries lose approximately 2 to 3% of their charge per year in storage conditions. Batteries stored for 5 years may retain 85 to 90% of their original capacity, which sounds sufficient until the device fails mid-use in a critical moment. Lithium AA batteries have a rated shelf life of up to 20 years and perform significantly better in cold temperatures, where standard alkaline batteries underperform. For a dedicated emergency supply, the lithium premium, roughly double the cost, is worth it. Keep a labeled, dated supply of fresh batteries separate from your general battery drawer. Rotate them annually. Check every device in your home that handles safety or communication functions and confirm the batteries are current, not the ones that have been in there since last winter. Rechargeable batteries are excellent for daily use. For emergency purposes specifically, keep a dedicated supply of fresh disposables that require no grid access to function. One item left. And here's something worth saying directly. Most people watching this will take action on items 3 through 14. They'll make a mental note about the radio, the cache, the documents. Maybe they'll pick up a few things this week. Items 2 and 1 are the ones that will get skipped. Not because they seem unimportant. Because they feel already handled. I have batteries somewhere. My tank is usually pretty full. That assumption, untested, unverified, is exactly the gap this list is designed to close. Item 1 is the one that determines whether every other item here actually matters. Item 1. Fuel, what it actually controls. Fuel appeared at item 15. It closes the list at item 1, because every item covered between then and now shares a hidden dependency. That dependency is fuel. Think about what the items on this list give you. A water filter, medicine, a radio, cache, documents, food, cooking capability, light, power. These are preparations that expand your options, your ability to stay informed, stay healthy, stay fed, and stay functional, regardless of what's happening outside. But every single one of those preparations assumes, at its foundation, that you can move, that you can reach the pharmacy when the medication runs out, that you can get to the store for replacement batteries, that you can transport someone who needs help, that you can leave a situation that becomes unsafe. A half-empty tank on the wrong day doesn't just stop your car. It stops your options. All of them. At once. That's the real weight of this category. Not the cost per gallon. Not the inconvenience of a line. The fact that every practical decision you might need to make, every other item on this list, runs through the assumption that you can move when you need to. When that assumption breaks, the rest breaks with it. The half-tank rule, applied consistently, permanently removes you from the problem. You never join the line because you never need to. The disruption happens around you, the lines form around you, and you are already home, already covered, already past the moment everyone else is reacting to. That distance, between you and the crowd, is the entire value of everything on this list. 15 items. Let me give you the framework that ties them together. There's a concept worth keeping in mind after today. The invisible threshold. It's the moment when enough people sense instability that collective behavior shifts, not dramatically, not with any announcement, but measurably and fast. Before that moment, everything on this list is fully available, normally priced, in stock, 15 minutes away. After that moment, the picture changes. And the speed at which it changes consistently surprises people who've never watched it happen before. The cost of preparation before the threshold is flat. $20 here, $10 there, an afternoon to organize documents, a monthly 2-minute check on a power bank. The cost of preparation after the threshold is not just financial. It's time spent in lines, driving to a fifth store, improvising with what's left on the shelf. And in some cases, it's realizing the window has closed entirely. Here's the practical action this video is asking for. Not all of it today, not all of it this week, but before May 1st. Go through this list. Identify the 3 items you don't currently have in ready, maintained condition. Not theoretically own. Actually have. Start there. 3 items. That's the action. The people who are covered when the threshold crosses aren't the ones who moved fastest after the signal. They're the ones who were never in the same position as everyone else to begin with. They acted earlier, not dramatically earlier, just ahead of the moment when everyone else moved at once. Preparation isn't an ideology. It isn't a personality type. It's the recognition that the systems we depend on have real limits, that those limits surface at unpredictable moments, and that the window for easy, low-cost action is always before the event, never during it. 15 items. Most under $20. Every single one available right now. Drop the number of the one item on this list you don't currently have ready, just the number in the comments. I read every one. And if you want to see which items most people buy first that are actually the least useful in a real disruption, including one item that appears on almost every preparedness list, and that emergency management professionals say can actively work against you, that video is next. Don't miss it.